Hey everyone, kind of an impromptu video. I've taken a little bit of time off. I got COVID and I've been kind of down, and I still have I got some nagging rumbly stuff in the chest there that I can't quite shake. So I've been avoiding talking because it's not working out very well, but seems good enough today. But I wanted to talk about an observation I made, and it's because I've had COVID. I just kind of disconnected from everything. I just really isolated. And then I make an observation about the experience that I'm having in life, the quality of experience. And I realize that it's, time to talk about something we've talked about before, but to put extra emphasis on it. And that is to disconnect, or do our best to feel better by disconnecting from what is going on in the world. How do we do that? My name is Dan Paulson. Everyone, welcome to the channel. And really what we have to do is live from the higher being. When we're caught up in the world, we are living in the physical self. And when we are disconnected from that, we're living from the higher being. And we've been talking about that in videos, and that's time to provide a little bit more emphasis on why we want to do that and what we're trying to accomplish. Now, one of the things that I realize is there's so much information today, so much conflict. We've gotten so big. It's so much, and there's so much information coming at you that I look at it and go, you can't unsee it. How can you disconnect from that? How can you disconnect from all the pain and the suffering that's in the world and the insanity that's going on? And everybody knows what I'm talking about. There's just this unreasonable division that has come down to a point of demonization, kind of a mutual demonization with no communication. And that's getting bigger, and nothing's interrupting it. That is going to erupt. That's something that you could see happening, and you're like, what? How the hell do I disconnect from that? What do we do? How do you not feel that? Yeah, it's kind of in your face. So, all right, let's try to figure out something, because it is difficult, and I think it's hard for us not to feel on a day-to-day basis the suffering that you can see happening right now. But you can see incredible amounts of it unjustifiably coming on the horizon. Yeah, that sucks. Things are not okay. Yeah, I'm not doing very well at talking about how to get around it, am I? Let me try a different approach here. Okay, the first thing really is to just look at life overall. We have to look at this and just examine our own life. You have to take the time to process this on your own. Sitting here listening to me talking about it is an academic pursuit. Not until someone takes the information, goes and sits down with it and processes it through, does it become or start to become something that is experiential, part of something that we wire into. I think that's probably a big reason why the story is told in mystery. Not only to carry it, but also you had to process it. Somebody didn't just tell you the answer. What's the meaning of life? You had to figure it out for yourself. And that's a part of the process. It is a self-taught thing by going through it. Okay, so first of all, we're hoping we're at a point along the way where we understand that what we are personally is a product of our perceptions and our life experiences. If we can get to that point, we can start doing some interacting with that. We can understand that this bundle of experience right here is not exactly who we are. It's the bundle of experience. That outside of that is what we are, and we're trying to learn to live outside of that. While we are living the life experience and caught up in that, that's where we emerge from. Where we emerge from. If we can't escape it, if we stay stuck into it, we don't emerge from it. We stay there as a product of it. This is the raucous world. This is the point in Genesis before the flood. Things are bad. It's a bad place. Not just, we take the material individually. It's about us. But when people don't, en masse, look what happens. The same thing that's happening in the bigger picture is happening in each one of the individual pictures. They all fit and help make that bigger. Fighting against it creates conditions for it to strengthen. It used to be that if people were gay, they kind of kept it to themselves. You might know there might be some sort of an indication. It was not in the open. Nobody made a big deal out of it. Nobody said anything. It was just kind of You thought under the table. I'm sure in quiet places there were issues. As time goes on and it becomes more out in the open and people become more expressive against it and violent against it and hurtful against it, you see the gay community itself become larger and become more outlandish, that these two, we can observe, I can in my lifetime see how the two conditions have grown back and forth, teeter-tottering, getting larger and larger, that they're two sides of the same coin, and that the conflict that they have, that they hold towards each other, and the hatred and the judgment is what is creating that growth. But yep, that's what creates it. If you're born a certain way, why would you want somebody to come and tell you your rights are wrong when they've got their own issues? Is why it is like, come on, what do you, I'm born a certain way. What are you telling me? It's, how would you live life? Somebody's coming at you with judgment, fear, and shame is what it is. So it's a completely broken process that you can see is creating conflict. How do you interrupt that? How do you tell all the people that hate it you need to resolve your childhood games? Whatever it is, whatever you're holding, whatever this conflict is that you're holding internally, that you're acting out against, you got to fix that. Their fear and shame over that issue is at a epidemically violent point right now. That's, what do? You want to say something? You want to live? You want to die? It's not going to change what's happening. It won't. There's something bigger. And we don't see it when we're caught up in it. We have to step back from it. Okay, do you remember this one from Jesus? To fast is to the world. The fasting, it's analogous for consuming, for taking things in, but we can do that in the physical world. But when we transition it through the narrow gate to the mind, it becomes psychological, it becomes mental, it becomes interactive at that point. And fasting, consuming, means that we are taking things in. We are becoming products of our life experiences. We are becoming products of the way we perceive what we are experiencing. What we are consuming is just an analogous term meant to carry that. You have to transition and understand what they mean. It fits. I'm eating that and I'm becoming a product of that. I have to fast, but I have to fast as to the world, not fast as to the spiritual, to the inward or something like that. It is fast as to the world. Let go. Disconnect from all of the things that are happening out there that you are caught up in, because it just, you become a product of it. And if you're not involved in it physically, but it's just a mental thing, it's maybe, communications on the internet or just reading articles and being, oh God, I hate that. You're getting, if it's affecting your emotional state, that's it right there. We're looking for the emotion is how we feel about it. If you're dealing with something that makes you feel bad and you don't need to deal with it, you're just looking at it, get the hell away. We don't know that. We don't like it there. We want to do something, but we don't realize that right at that moment, we're actually doing the wrong thing. We're not doing the right thing by feeling it, by experiencing it, by looking at it that way, by becoming a part of that teeter-totter process in the energy world. We have to somehow step outside of it. We have to become bigger than that. We have to move to that higher being perception area in order to do that. Fasting is to the world. Have you read the Gospel of Thomas? There's another one in there that I interpret this one the same way. Become passers-by. Jesus said, become passers-by. Right there, 3 words of this is how to live enlightened. And I've heard that interpreted as, that means as you live life here, it's a step along the way. Become a passerby to life experiences itself. And I don't interpret it that way because that's outward looking. I look at it inward looking, and what that means, like all the other teachings, is to let go of the things of the physical world. Become a passerby in life. Become a passerby of those things that are just people caught up in them. They're their little worlds, their little dramas and all this stuff along the way that can become a big drama. Do you jump in with it, or do you step back and go, whew, let me try to see what's going on from the outside without being a product, an emotional product out of control of the experience? I went and edited this in. It's a tough thing to talk about because some people will ask, what are you talking about? It sounds like you're saying ignore the problem. stick your head in the sand or something like that. And that's not the deal. The deal is that when you're a part of the process, it helps enhance the strength of the issue itself. You're trying to get to a point where, and the reason that happens is because there is something driving everyone. There's a cause and effect happening, and people are not seeing the cause. What they're seeing is the effect, and they're going after each other based on the effect without anyone ever looking at the cause. Therefore, it doesn't resolve anything to continue to act upon it that way. All it does is add to the wrong thing, the cause. It doesn't get you to a position where you can, the effect. It doesn't get you to a position where you can see the actual cause. That's why you let go. You can't fix it right if you can't see it right. That having been said, knowing what to do doesn't mean you get to do it. But here's what I realize. You can observe what impacts you just by looking at your life throughout the day. What is it throughout the day that when I'm doing this, I feel okay? When I'm doing this, I don't feel okay. Is there something you can do to change this part right here? Some stuff you can drop it completely. Some stuff you can. It might come from a work environment or somewhere that, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to quit doing this on a daily basis. You can't. You have to maintain that. So there's other things that we would have to do. But it's all the times that we are caught up in something that we don't like the feeling of. What's another one in the Gospel of Thomas? Something like, don't do what you don't like to do. Yeah, what are the rules of life? Yeah, don't do what you don't enjoy. Don't do what you don't love. And that's exactly right. That's all part of that, becoming a passerby, becoming disconnected, letting go of things like that. So turning the stuff off, not experiencing it, working to a point and trying to find a point where you are more and more free of the things that just pull you into life experiences, letting that stuff go as much as possible. And you know what? I have to say that it's a progression, and it goes from a very emotionally connected place to kind of an overseer, less connected, almost robotic sometimes place. You're not unaware of what's happening. You're finding a way to be aware of what's happening without being hooked into some side or another. You're understanding that amps up that field. In fact, I look at it that way. Like I almost see it like we're all little organic robots, except that we have the capacity to transmit and receive frequencies. And unaware, if we receive a frequency that makes us feel a certain way, we become that, we feel it and we add to it. We increase the size of the frequency of that emotion. And that's kind of how I see it happen. Yeah. And then knowing that makes you realize I'm getting hooked into it. It's not changing it. It's making one side or another enhance its survivability in an evolving state. At least that's what I see from a detached perspective from it, that it just goes farther and farther off kilter. The farther the left goes, the farther the right. It's like an explosion is booming and just getting bigger and bigger. The shock waves are growing. That's what it's like. Like nature works that way, and we're functioning that way too. We're doing so blindly. But anyway, okay, yeah, disconnecting. For me, I had a lot of peace and quiet growing up. There were times I didn't. I remember having headphones that I disappeared into quite a bit. That's very easy today with earbuds and Bluetooth. I do that today. I really disconnect. What I will tell you that is what I consume then. I become just more of a product of what I want to do. And you know what? It can be boring. You want to fill that time. I'm not hunting and foraging anymore. Life is a little bit different. I can't just sit here and stare at the wall 24/7 and go, yes, this is enlightenment. It's not fun. So I've gotten into like all of the, videos about quantum physics and things like that. Fun things that are something that are probably a part of how everything works that I'm talking about, but I don't understand it. So it's a new direction for me to go to try and understand how the spiritual world, or what we perceive as the spiritual world, is actually an energy reality that we are functioning within with our brains and our perceptions, but we're not quite connected with. We have to try to figure it out by inference, this work? Yes. If there's a time where somebody, a Muslim might have said, I feel the power of Allah. Everybody else is wrong. And somebody else might say, I feel the power of, when I pray to Jesus, everybody is wrong. And, that I feel a certain something, that there's this uplifting. You could have a group of Aborigines or somewhere in Africa, a tribe, having the same physical experience, and they would tell you that. At what point do you look at them and say, yeah, one of you guys are right? Or do you look at them and say, wow, all of you are describing the exact same experience. You're just giving it a different source that you believe it's from. What if I look at this differently and go, the experience is right, the source is what? What are you doing? And when you look and you realize it's faith, it's belief, it's conviction, there's a certain mental processes that they're all going through. And whether they assign it to something or not, that experience can happen. It's a real thing. We call it supernatural, but you can sit back and go, no, there's something happening that makes that happen in a natural way. We evolved with it. It's a kind of a different thing. What's important here is to look at ourselves and what we are not. To look at ourselves throughout the day and look at how we are experiencing life emotionally at that time, and then trying to modify life experiences in such a way that we don't experience the things that create that angst. This isn't even healing yet. This isn't even looking at the self and bringing it with us. This is letting go of the stuff that we're hanging on to every day, that fills up our day and hurts us and keeps us so busy that we can't make any progress. This is about that, letting go of that stuff. I have not had television or, direct TV, anything like that, cable or, only internet for about maybe 15 years now. That was by accident. I used to have a job where I was gone about half the year, gone back and forth. At some point and I lived alone. At some point I'm paying for all these things I'm not using. So I just shut it off. And that was actually good. That's when I really got into studying this material, and I just went book crazy. So it was perfect timing. Now though, it's very limiting on what I view. I select what I view. And I think that things like that are important. I used to drive without the radio on. If I did, it would be something that I specifically plugged in there in a tape at some point, or a CD. And then, now Bluetooth or something like that. It would be only what I want to listen to. I wouldn't just turn it on and find a station. And although I used to do that, as time went on, I quit that. I found myself just like naturally disconnecting from things and realizing this is something happening out there that I'm allowing my time to flow into without using it for myself. I'm just allowing something else to take over. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to heal, there's a point where you have to get rid of the distractions and turn that stuff off and start going through mental processes. So the distraction, all of it, the world has to be gone. Anyway, I wanted to say that it became more clear to me in the last, week and a half or so, as I'm disconnected. It's like, yeah, I really feel better when I'm not hooked into the stuff going on. I can see it. I can see it for what it is. Can I interrupt it? No. Can I interrupt it when I'm hurt by it and feeling it? No. I used to write a lot of stuff, and I wrote down verses one time, and I can remember one that, it was like my own metaphors. And I made one that said, you can't dry off when you're standing in the rain. And that's one of those verses, like, you cycle around that which you cling to, or something like that. There's little meanings nested in those. And in this case, when I made the verse, when I thought of the verse, it was like, if you are being hurt by a situation and you can't heal from it, but you're in the situation, you have to get out of the situation first. You can't heal while you're being hurt. You can't dry off while you're standing in the rain. But the same applies here. That's very broad-based. When you interpret it, you realize that we're trying to figure out what's going on, but we're caught in what is going on. It doesn't change what's going on to be a part of it or to not be a part of it. It changes the way we're able to understand it. This also, however, very directly changes the personal healing dynamic of the individual going through the process at that time. The more you're connected to life and hooked into things, the harder you're not going to make it. You're going to be hooked. You're going to keep getting caught up in that stuff. If you want to heal, you have to let go of that stuff. You, you can't dry off when you're standing in the rain. You cycle around that which you cling to, which then appears to me actually to be, at this point, as I'm moving along, I look at it and go, is this just a way for me to not be emotionally attached to what is inevitable? The only benefit I can get is trying to understand it and cease to feel it. It doesn't mean it changes it. So we got issues. Yeah, it's not going to be an easy process. If you can get to a point where you're looking at it from outside, that is living from the higher being. That's understanding that we are somehow emergent from the cosmos. We become this little physical thing, and then we get stuck there, not realizing where we came from. And the people that are all like caught up in the day-to-day stuff and going through news and this and all that, they're caught up in that old world down there. They haven't let go of it. You just got to turn away. And it's hard. Greeks, I don't recall. Aristotle, maybe I should have looked this up before posting it. There's a point at some point where you know what to do, where you know all of the right things. You've healed, you've done all this stuff, you know how to act and everything like that, and it doesn't work. There is a point where, I can't remember exactly the term, but it was like the individual just has to have moral courage. I'm not going to do that anymore, and then you give in. I'm not going to do that anymore, then you give it. At some point when you're giving in, you could even be going, yeah, I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to go do it anyway. That right there, that's the lack of moral courage. You just failed. You just let it go. Jesus has one in this might be Gospel of Philip. I don't recall this one either. But it's something like we do the things that we don't want to, and we don't do the things that we want to. You could sit there in the daytime and go, oh yeah, I am done with that. I am so finished. And then that night, maybe one more Merlot tonight before bed. The next day, yeah, that is bad for me. I'm going to quit. That's it. I'm done. We can observe these cycles going on, that we are in the material. And there's points you just have to go, I see it. I know what to do. But once you know what to do and you begin to interact with it consciously, I think it becomes easier. You can catch yourself. You don't give in anymore. You can, when you're giving in, instead of just going, I'll do it, and you let it go, you go, I'll give in. And the voice in the back goes, yeah, you liar, you chicken. You see what's happening right here? There's other mechanisms that we start employing that help us keep an eye on things and help us make growth. Anyway, yeah, I've had that issue, definitely. I'll speak from experience. So, all righty. Well, okay, that's it for this video. I think it's important when you're listening and watching or viewing something that you're just like, oh my God, you have to get away from it. It is horrible. It is freaking horrible. Nothing about you sitting there and feeling it and experiencing it makes it better. In fact, it probably makes it worse if we're generating a human field of that frequency, of that emotional feel. Then when you're feeling that way, you're adding to that. You're helping other people grow that. When everybody feels uplifted, perfect. When everybody feels crappy, we're adding to that too if we feel it. When we're feeling good, we're adding to that. When we're feeling bad, we're adding to that. We just don't know that. All right. Love one another. See you in the next video.